Okay, let's be honest. We've all had that moment.
Huh?
You're standing on a beach that was promised to be a hidden gem or maybe a trail that was supposed to be remote, and you look around.
It's just wall-to-wall people.
Exactly, shoulder to shoulder with 300 other people doing the exact same thing, and you get that sinking feeling you're not stuck in traffic.
You are the traffic. It is the great paradox of modern travel. We destroy the thing we love simply by showing up.
Yeah, it's the White Lotus effect.
Yeah.
We love a place to death. But today, we are looking at some research that suggests the answer isn't to just stop traveling. It's to completely rewire why and how we do it.
That's right.
We're deep diving into a paper titled Regenerative Tourism Futures, a case study of Aotearoa New Zealand by Francesc Fuste-Forney and Asif Hussein. And fair warning to everyone listening, this isn't about just reusing your hotel towel.
Well, no, this is much more radical than that. This is about moving the goalposts entirely. For what, the last 20 years, the industry buzzword has been sustainability.
Oh yeah, you see it everywhere.
But the core argument of this research is that sustainability is broken. It's an outdated metric.
Which is a pretty bold claim considering how many companies slap sustainable on their brochures. But I think I get the logic. Sustainable just means maintaining the status quo, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
If I'm in a toxic relationship, sustaining it isn't exactly a noble goal. I want to fix it.
That is a perfect analogy. If a system like a coral reef or a local culture or a tourism economy is already degraded, sustaining it just keeps it in that damaged state.
It's neutral at best.
Exactly. The concept we're exploring today, regenerative tourism, is about being net positive. It's about leaving a place specifically better than you found it.
Okay, which sounds lovely on a Hallmark card, but we're talking about an industry that runs on pretty thin margins and, volume. So is this actually a business model or is it just high-level philosophy?
That's the friction point. And that's why New Zealand, or Aotearoa, is such a fascinating case study. They aren't just theorizing this. They are actually trying to build an entire national economy around it.
And how are they doing that?
By looking backward, really. They're integrating Indigenous Māori wisdom into modern capitalist structures.
But they didn't just wake up one day and decide to do this, did they? The paper makes it pretty clear this pivot was born out of a massive crisis.
It was a forced reset. You have to look at the context. Pre-2020, New Zealand was riding the volume wave. The authors call it unsustainable growth.
Just heads in beds.
Yep. Heads in beds, increasing flight capacity, maximizing throughput, the classic extractive model.
You pump as many people through the turnstiles as you can.
Precisely. But then, of course, COVID hit. March 2020, New Zealand closes its borders.
And the tap just turns off.
It was welded shut. The paper cites a global drop of 400 million tourist arrivals. For New Zealand, it was catastrophic.
So the money just evaporates. And usually when an industry crashes like that, the instinct is to just scramble back to normal as fast as possible. You patch the hull and get the ship moving again.
But these authors are arguing that the crash revealed the ship was already sinking. The pandemic acted as a kind of truth serum.
How so?
It exposed that the visitor economy was brittle. It was entirely dependent on international travelers flying these long-haul flights, burning massive amounts of carbon just to come and consume experiences.
And when that stopped?
The vulnerability was obvious. So rather than asking, how do we get the numbers back up, the question became, do we even want those numbers back?
Right, that's the stitch a new garment quote from the text. But let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
You're a tourism operator in Queenstown. You've had zero revenue for 2 years. Do you really have the luxury to say, no, I don't want the mass market back. I want to be regenerative?
And that is the tension. It's what you could call the factory versus garden dilemma.
Okay, I like that. Unpack it for me.
The old model is a factory. You run the machine hard, you extract value, and when it breaks, you fix it and run it again. It's efficient, but it depletes the resource. The new model is a garden. You have to tend the soil. If you extract too much from a garden without putting nutrients back in, well, nothing grows next year.
Okay, but factories tend to have better quarterly returns than gardens.
In the short term, yes. But the argument here is that tourism isn't a factory. It's an ecosystem. If you degrade the environment, the product, eventually no one comes. The factory closes for good.
So the regenerative approach is really a long-term survival strategy.
Exactly. And it starts by redefining what the economy actually is. The paper makes a really important distinction between the tourism industry and the visitor economy.
I saw that. At first it just felt like semantics. What's the real difference?
It's about leakage and integration. Tourism industry is made of silos, airlines, hotels, rental cars. Often that money just leaks out. If you fly a foreign airline and stay in a global hotel chain,
A huge chunk of your spending leaves New Zealand immediately. It goes to corporate HQs in London or New York.
you got it. The visitor economy is broader. It acknowledges that a visitor uses the local water supply, drives on local roads, shops at the local grocery store.
They interact with residents.
They impact the entire system as if they were a temporary resident. So the goal shifts from how much money did the hotel make to how did this visit impact the community's water, the local culture, and the grocery store owner.
It's a holistic audit, but how do you actually measure that? This is where I start to struggle. I mean, we have KPIs for profit, for occupancy. How do you have a KPI for community vibes?
This is where the Indigenous framework comes in, and honestly, it's the most intellectually challenging part of the paper for a Western mindset. They use a framework based on Māori.
Māori. That means life force, right?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
The vital essence that binds the physical and the spiritual. In Aotearoa Māori, the Māori worldview, everything has Māori. A river, a mountain, a person, a business.
So if the Māori is strong, the system is healthy. If it's weak, it's dying.
That's the idea. And the authors break this down into 5 dimensions. You have Māori Tangata, which is the enrichment of people.
Okay.
Māori Tuakiri is the enlivenment of identity. Māori Ohanga is the prosperity of the economy.
So the economy is just one part, not the whole thing.
Just one part. Then you have Māori Oil, the health of the planet, and Māori Ora, which is the well-being of all.
So don't think of it as a checklist then.
No, think of them as competing interests in a boardroom.
Okay, let's role play this. I run a jet boat company. My old world brain says, run the boats every hour, maximize ticket sales. That pumps up Moriohanga, my economic prosperity.
Bonuses for everyone.
Right.
But in doing so, you're dumping noise and fuel into the river.
Yeah.
You are degrading Māori oil, the environment. Maybe your staff are overworked, burned out, doing 12 runs a day. That crashes Māori Tangata, the well-being of the people.
Uh-huh.
And maybe the local tribe is offended because you're speeding past a sacred site. So you're damaging Māori Tuakiri cultural identity.
So under this new model, even if I made $1 million profit, I actually failed.
Yes. Because the net Māori of the system has gone down. You abstracted cash, but you depleted the life force of the river, the staff, and the community.
So a regenerative business would say what?
It would say, okay, we run fewer boats, we pay the staff more, we start at the sacred site to respectfully tell the story of the land, enhancing culture, we use electric engines, saving the environment.
But the tickets would have to cost 3 times as much.
They might. And that leads to that big shift from volume to value. But value doesn't just mean expensive. It means the exchange is deeper.
It still sounds incredibly difficult to implement. You're asking businesses to voluntarily limit their potential revenue for the sake of a life force that they can't physically see.
It is difficult. It requires a fundamental shift in values, specifically moving from a sense of ownership to one of kaitiakitanga.
Kaitiakitanga, that's guardianship.
Yes. In Western capitalism, if I buy a piece of land, I own it. I can build a hotel, dig a hole, do whatever I want. It's my asset. The Māori worldview and the regenerative view says you don't own the land. You are a temporary guardian, a kaitiaki. The land was here before you. It'll be here after you. Your job is just to ensure it's healthy for the next generation.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You're essentially telling a hotelier, you want the boss. The land is the boss.
Precisely. And this isn't just a metaphor. The paper highlights the case study of Maunga Tongariro,
The volcano.
a massive active volcano, a sacred ancestor to the Ngati Tuartoa people. It's also one of the most popular day hikes in the world.
The Tongariro Crossing. It's bucket list stuff.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID, it was a conga line. Thousands of people a day, trash, human waste. Not exactly a spiritual experience.
You're being loved to death. The Māori of the mountain was being depleted, so the approach changed. The paper quotes a report saying, visitor behavior is shaped to fit the Maunga mountain rather than the Maunga being shaped to fit the visitors.
Whoa, stop there for a second, because that is the exact opposite of the service industry.
I know.
Usually, we blast a tunnel, we pave a parking lot, we put in a Starbucks, we shape the mountain to fit the tourist.
We modify the environment for our convenience. The regenerative approach flips it. If the mountain is exhausted, spiritually or physically, you limit the numbers. If the weather is bad, you don't just push through, you respect the rahui, a temporary ban.
The landscape dictates the terms.
Yes.
So practically speaking, that means turning customers away. It means saying, sorry, the mountain says no today.
It does, and that is where the economic friction is very real. But the argument is that by doing this, you preserve the mana, the prestige, and power of the place.
And people respond to that.
Surprisingly, yes. It turns out people actually crave boundaries, they crave respect. Hiking a sacred mountain feels different when you've been told, you're a guest here, behave accordingly, versus you bought a ticket, do what you want.
It adds a layer of exclusivity, but one that's based on respect, not just money.
Well, money is still a factor, let's not be naive. But yes, it's an attempt to socialize the visitor into a new mindset. This is where the Tiaki promise comes in.
I wanted to ask about this. It's a pledge visitors are encouraged to take. Tiaki means to care for people and place. But I have to be the skeptic again. Is this just a QR code you scan at the airport? I promise to be good, click, done.
That's a valid skepticism. We've seen eco-pledges before.
And do they actually change behavior?
The paper argues the Tiaki promise is different because it's not just a list of rules like don't litter. It's an invocation into a relationship. It frames the visitor as a guardian.
It's psychological.
It is. If I tell you don't walk on the grass, you might do it anyway. If I tell you this grass is the hair of an ancestor and walking on it hurts them, and you actually respect that story,
You won't walk on the grass.
you won't. It's moving from compliance to connection. And businesses are operationalizing this. The paper mentions a company called the Seventh Generation Tours.
And their model is storytelling.
But their goal isn't just to entertain, it's to regenerate the listener. The quote is, share stories that enhance so that you leave better.
I like that.
If you go on a tour and learn the deep history of a place, the struggles, the mythology, you leave with a wider perspective. You've been enriched, Mori Tangata, and the culture has been kept alive by being shared, Mori Tuakiri. That is regenerative tourism. It's not just planting trees.
It's planting knowledge. Okay, but let's zoom out to the macro level. New Zealand is an island nation. It's expensive to get there. If they really pivot to this high-value, low-volume model, are we just creating a playground for the rich? Does regenerative tourism just mean gentrified tourism?
That is the elephant in the room. If we raise prices to account for the true environmental cost carbon offsets, living wages, ecosystem restoration travel absolutely becomes more expensive. There's a real risk of elitism.
Right. Sorry, you can't afford to be a guardian today.
However, the counter-argument is that the cheap travel of the past wasn't actually cheap. The cost was just hidden. It was paid for by underpaid cleaners, by polluted rivers, by carbon emissions that future generations will have to deal with.
So the price on the ticket was artificially low because the environment was subsidizing the vacation.
We were all getting a discount from the planet. Now we're finally seeing the real bill. And the new traveler, this paper describes, the conscious traveler, is someone willing to pay that bill.
So they travel slow.
They travel slow. They might take one big trip every 3 years instead of 3 cheap trips a year. They stay longer. They engage deeper.
It's like the slow food movement applied to travel. Instead of a cheap burger that's bad for you and the planet, you eat a locally sourced meal that costs more but actually nourishes you.
That's the hope. And regions like the Bay of Plenty and Queenstown Lakes are betting their future on it. They're writing plans that explicitly state, we prioritize the community first. If the locals aren't happy, the tourists don't get to come.
Which is radical. Usually locals are just told to put up with the traffic because it brings jobs.
But if those jobs don't pay enough to live in the town because Airbnb has driven up rent, a huge issue in Queenstown, then the social license breaks. The community rebels. Regenerative tourism tries to fix that root cause.
It all comes back to that quote by Renee Taylor in the text. I think we need to hear it because it really summarizes why this is all happening now.
She writes, we will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature.
Normal never was. That really hits hard. It suggests that what we thought was a functioning industry was actually, I don't know, a hallucination based on cheap oil and ignoring consequences.
It creates a new baseline. It asks us to stop looking for recovery, which implies going backward, and start looking for evolution.
So bringing this all back to our listener, most of us aren't tourism board directors in New Zealand. We're just people booking a holiday. What does this actually mean for us?
It doesn't mean you have to stop traveling, but it does demand a mindset shift. The next time you book a trip, ask yourself, am I being an extractor or a contributor?
That's a tough question to answer, honestly.
It is, but you can look for the visitor economy cues. Is your money staying local? Are you engaging with the culture or just consuming it? And are you willing to accept boundaries? If a place says, don't go there or limit your water use, do you see that as an annoyance?
Or as your contribution to the Māori of the place.
Exactly. It's about being a guest, not a customer. The customer's always right.
The guest respects the host.
Perfectly put. You can apply Kaitakitanga to a trip to Paris or a Disney World or your local state park. It's not about the destination. It's about your intention.
So here is the final provocation we want to leave you with today, and it's a bit of a brain bender. Imagine if you had to apply for a visa for your next vacation, but the only requirement for approval was proving that the destination would be better off because you visited.
Wow.
Not just that you spent money, but that the place would be cleaner, culturally richer, or healthier because you were there.
If that were the rule, where would you even be allowed to go? And what would you have to do to get approved?
I think my travel list just got a lot shorter, but maybe that's the point.
Maybe it is. Travel consciously, everyone.
See you in the next deep dive.